Hey there everybody, it's Ramsey here. I hope y'all are doing well. I want you to take a quick look at both of these cookies right here. For the most part, they look pretty much identical. However, on one of them, I piped the word love on top of a crusted base only. It wasn't completely dry. On the other one, I piped the word love on top of a completely 100% dry cookie base. Can you guys tell which is which? It's a little hard for me to tell the difference too. You may have heard by now that it's best to pipe your lettering and any details over a crusted over base, not one that has completely dried already. And that is true. That is the #1 best way to avoid craters altogether. However, some of us have crazy busy schedules and we just cannot fit in flooding and detailing cookies in the same day. So if you find yourself in that position where you have to push back adding the details on top until after your flood base has completely dried, I'm going to show you one technique in this video, just one tiny easy extra step you can take that's going to make your chances so much better at combating those craters over a completely dry base. So real quick, I'm not going over outlining, flooding, or how to use a projector in this video. I'll save those techniques for other tutorials. But I flooded these off camera using the exact same icing, and I'm gonna let one of them crust over after flooding, maybe about 20 to 30 minutes before piping love on top. And the other one I'm gonna let sit on my counter on a wire rack to dry overnight before I pipe love on top of that. Also, these cookies were not for sale. They were only sample cookies that I saved for video purposes. So you're going to kind of see me manhandle them a little bit. Just know that they did not go to a customer. So here I'm just freehanding the word love using toothpaste consistency. And if you need help understanding what toothpaste consistency is, I'll link my consistency video down in the description. But again, I'm just freehanding love on top. And then going back in and filling in the little bubble portions that I made of the letter. I call those little bubble parts of each letter. And then you just scribe it out very easily. You can see how the thicker parts of the icing, you can blend it into the thinner part of the letter, like right there at the top that I just did. And it just meshes well and it just blends out. And on that V, I don't know if you noticed, but I kind of spilled over a little bit. You can use your scribe easily just to go in and fix that little portion and scribe it out to make it look nice. So again, this is over the cookie that just barely crusted over. I let it sit maybe 20 to 30 minutes right after I flooded. And I went ahead and did the detail on top, the word love. And this is, like I said before, this is the best method to avoid craters. But once again, we're so busy, it won't always end up that way. So here's that particular cookie completely dry. You can see it kept its puff. It did not develop any craters anywhere. It looks beautiful. And that is definitely the way to go if you have the time to flood and detail shortly after it crusts. If you do not, if you have to wait for your flood to dry completely like this cookie has, I'm going to show you one extra step you can take to help your lettering not develop craters. Once again, it's not as foolproof as the first method, but it's a definite runner-up. So you're going to pipe as normal, just as you did the first one, piping out love with toothpaste consistency, making your little bubble sections to puff up. Here's where the extra step comes in. In those little bubble portions, you're gonna take your toothpaste icing and just kind of ribbon it back and forth, if that makes sense, to fill in that bubble gap. Sometimes you'll see bakers lay down like a little squiggle in this area before filling it in all the way. I go ahead and do like a base level of filling it in, so a little bit more than a squiggle, if you will. And I feel like it just gives it more support underneath, so it has less chances of caving in on you. So there it is. It looks very sloppy, you know, kind of wonky looking right now, but that's how it's supposed to look because you're going to go in a minute to create your puff, which is this portion right here. After you've laid down all your ribbons and filled in those little puff sections with a base, you're going to go back over them with a little bit more pressure and fill in those sections completely. It's going to sit higher on your cookie, so it's important that you scribe maybe after every 2 or 3 letters rather than going ahead and filling in all the letters and then going back to scribe. So that's why I recommend scribing after a few letters on this go round. So that's what I'm doing here. I'm smoothing it out just like I did before, and it's blending with that extra little lift, that extra little base it has underneath it as opposed to the first round. You can see it's nice and smooth. And now we just need to finish out the V and the E the exact same way. And once again, just to reiterate what I said before, in my personal experience, this is the second best thing when it comes to combating craters. You know, piping and detail work on a crusted over cookie like the top one up here is the best way to go. But if you are running in a million different directions and just have to push that decorating and final steps of the cookie to the back burner, this method that I'm working on right now has saved me on multiple occasions. I do it this way, and then I wake up to very, very minimal cratering, if any at all. And there we have method number 2, adding detail over a completely dry base. So let's see how this one does. Okay, so all is full and dry on both cookies now, so let's compare. Here's our first cookie where we piped our love detail over just a crusted over base, and you can see it kept its puff, no craters, it's beautiful. Here is our method number 2, which is our I don't have time for you right now, I'll see you tomorrow for some detail method, where we piped over a completely dry base. It held its own, don't you think? Look at them both closely. The only ever so slightly difference I can pick up is this little portion of the L right here where it looked like it was starting to cave in, but it said, not today. I have a base underneath me. I'm going to stop right here. So only a cookie decorator's eye would pick that up. Your customers would be so happy with it. I hope this helped you guys in your fight against craters. Happy baking!